Looking to get started with tarot but don't know what deck to choose? This video is for you. That and our Sunday morning spread coming right up. Hello there, friends. Brian Noe with you from Cards of Light. Thank you for joining me once again this week. We will have our Sunday morning spread with our tarot reading for the week to come coming up in a bit. But I want to talk at the top this time about how to choose a tarot deck. Before we get to that, if everybody could give this video a thumbs up, I'd appreciate it. If you are new here, please subscribe. And if you are a returning viewer, thank you so much for joining me again. I truly appreciate it. Okay. How to choose a tarot deck. There are so many options available. There are literally thousands, maybe tens of thousands of tarot decks in print now. Many thousands anyway. And then there are also oracle decks and Lenormand decks and that sort of thing as well. I'm going to stick to tarot decks in this video, but I think the discussion would be widely applicable to other types of decks as well. So hopefully it's helpful regardless of what you're looking for. First of all, I want to deal with the kind of tradition that your first tarot deck at least ought to be a gift. You should not buy that deck for yourself. Some people say you should never buy a deck for yourself. And I understand tradition has its place and all of that kind of stuff, but I think this is one we can kind of dispense with. It is nice if your first deck is gifted to you, just because that's a cool thing. It's a connection with the person who gave it to you, but it's absolutely not a requirement. So don't worry about it. You can go ahead and get your own deck if you want. I would say one of the first things to consider when you are choosing a deck is what you're going to use it for. Are you going to be using this deck mainly for kind of self-exploration and self-improvement and spiritual work and that sort of thing for yourself? Or are you going to be reading for others? Are you wanting to collect decks? Maybe you'd be collecting and displaying them. All of those things kind of factor in to what sort of deck that you want to pick up. So you want to have those in mind as you're going through this process. Let's talk a little bit about practical considerations as well. So cost may or may not be a factor for you. The quality of the deck may make a difference. Some people like particular card stock, particular processes in terms of printing and coding and all of that kind of stuff with the cards. Availability may be an issue in some cases where you would not be able to find a particular deck, particularly if you're looking at older collectible decks and that kind of stuff. Those can be pretty expensive and pretty difficult to find. The size of the cards may or may not make a difference to you. I've got several kind of, I don't think they're called jumbo, but I would consider them jumbo or large format decks that I use some of the time, but not all of the time. They also make kind of playing card size decks. And then there's kind of the traditional tarot card size as well. Some of that may make a difference to you depending on portability, depending on the size of your hands and what feels comfortable to you. So that's something to at least pay attention to and look at. Style is another consideration. So do you like a very traditional deck like the Tarot de Marseilles? Or are you wanting something a little more updated or from the modern era? Is imagery, how important is that to you? Colors are another factor. If you have particular interests that you want to, they make decks that are, if you are a cat lover or a dog lover or a baseball fan, there are all kinds of themed decks out there. Um, there are multicultural decks. There are just any number of different things to think about. Do you have certain interests? There's a certain theme that you would like to see in your tarot deck? Do you like very kind of dark, spooky imagery, or do you want something more kind of light and bright and cheery? Those are the kind of things to pay attention to. So those are just not going to make recommendations on any of those. I'm just bringing those up as things that you want to have in your mind as you are looking at different decks and deciding what to get. For tarot, they're really, even though there's such a variety and all the different takes on this, they're really the three basic systems of tarot. You've got decks in the style of the Tarot de Marseilles and J.J. Swiss, that kind of stuff. You've got the Rider-Waite Smith decks and the many, many decks that are patterned after that system. And then you have Crowley's Thoth deck and a few other decks that are kind of patterned after it and use a lot of the same kind of styling and imagery and way of reading. I did do an earlier video about kind of a comparison of the RWS and the Thoth. If you want to take a look at it, I'll have that link in the description box. Another major consideration here is how easy the cards are to read. So decks like the Marseille or the Thoth deck have what we call pip cards for the minor arcana, and those are cards that show us the suit and the number, but they don't have any additional or extensive or explicit imagery like the Rider-Waite Smith deck does, that kind of depicts a meaning of the card. So in terms of just starting out and ease of reading, the Rider deck is, I've always recommended it as the kind of go-to first deck for someone. Indeed, it was the first deck that I started with when I began my tarot journey. So it's tried and true. If someone were just asking for a quick offhand recommendation, I would probably 9 times out of 10 say the Rider deck is the one that you'd want to start with. However, if you don't resonate with that, you want something that is maybe a little less in use, a little more unique, then you might want to look at those other two systems as well. Any deck of cards from any of those systems is going to read for tarot. So it's not like if you start reading on a Marseille deck that it's a huge leap to go to either a Thoth or RWS or vice versa. Whatever you start with, you'll be reading tarot. So it's really just kind of nuances and style and getting used to those individual decks so that you kind of know them like the back of your hand. You might, in addition to looking at the artwork on the cards, you might want to try and take a look at what they call the little white book that comes with the deck that you're considering. It will go in usually somewhat to the history of the deck. Will also generally have kind of some suggested card meanings and that kind of stuff, and give you a little bit of information about the traditions within that system. So if you can get one of those and take a look at it, that is helpful. When I was starting out, I started out with the Rider. As I learned other systems, when I started with the Marseille a little while later, I read a lot of additional material about that deck and about its history and watched videos from people who use that deck routinely and all. Same with the Thoth deck. When I started with it, I looked at a lot of different reference materials, looked at a lot of different videos to get used to it. So you could do that before you get started with a deck as well. If you're really interested in, let's say, the Tarot de Marseilles, you could do some research online. There are books dedicated specifically to that deck that you could take a look at. Same with those, same with Rider-Waite-Smith. So um, if you're not quite ready to make a decision, I would say, do some research on how that particular deck of cards came about and see if any of that jumps out at you. Really, you can also look at reviews. You can look at community pages. There are lots of kind of online tarot communities. Some are sort of gathered around certain content producers. You can get to know a lot of different people and learn a lot from them. So that's another source of information on all of this as well. You'll see lots of deck reviews. If something you're considering purchasing a specific deck and you do a search for that deck's name and review, particularly if it's a newer deck, you'll probably see videos with walkthroughs and all of that as well. So you can kind of get an idea of what the deck looks like. You might have some information about the quality of the deck, size, all of the other things that we've talked about. So those are a really good resource. I would say the most important thing after you've done all of those sorts of activities and thought about all of the considerations that we've talked about so far, most important thing in choosing a deck is your own intuition and whether or not that deck resonates with you. You're going to be spending a lot of time with it. You're going to want it to be a pleasant experience. You're going to want to enjoy picking that deck up and working with it. And so, and some decks just don't vibe with some of us. And sometimes that'll change over time too. A deck won't really work for you at first, or you're maybe even turned off by some of the imagery. And after a while, it'll kind of rope you in. And so, but I think that's the major consideration is in the same way that you would, you might do your homework on all kinds of issues when picking out an automobile or something like that. You're probably going to be looking for one that just feels like a good fit to you. Beyond all the practical considerations, you like the color, you like the style, feels like you. Same way with buying clothing and that kind of stuff. A lot of times people kind of have their own style and their own things that work for them and that they enjoy. Same with tarot decks. So really you're looking for that resonance and just kind of that intuitive sense that, hey, this is the deck for me. I will try to link to some other resources on this in the description box as well. There are lots of blog posts about how to pick out your first deck and that sort of thing. I'll try and find the best of those and maybe link to a couple of them there as well. I would love your questions and also your comments on how you would recommend somebody go about picking out a deck. You can either leave those comments here on the weblog or on the video, or pop on out to the weblog at atarotjourney.com and leave comments with the post related to this video, or you can use my contact information to get in touch with me directly if you'd rather have a more private conversation. Let's go now to our tarot card reading for the week to come. Okay, we have the cards laid out, and we're looking at the 4 dimensions of life once again this week using Vince Patisci's Tarot de Marseilles deck. We have 2 pip cards from the suit of wands, and we have 2 court cards, one from the suit of coins and one from the suit of cups this week. In the physical dimension, we have the Ace of Wands. In the social emotional dimension, we have the 6 of Wands. In the mental dimension, the King of Coins, and in the spiritual dimension, the Page of Cups. Let's take these one at a time here. So in this first position, in the physical dimension of our lives, which is the dimension that has to do with physical health, with material things, financial matters, employment, that sort of thing, we have this Ace of Wands. And this is the card of kind of primordial fire, that spark of passion, spirit, creative energy, and drive. And so coming in this material dimension of our lives, this tells me that we will have an upsurge of energy this week, and that we need to put that to good use. We need to, if there are projects that we have been wanting to begin, we need to begin those, particularly if we're looking at maybe something to do with the physical environment. If there are household projects that we've been kind of putting off, we ought to get on them this week. We'll have good results and lots of energy to get them done. Same would be true if we're talking about physical health, if we're talking about financial health. This is a signal to get out there, get moving, and make some things happen this week. Over here in the social emotional dimension, we have the Six of Wands. And this is the card of achieving goals through collaboration and alliance with others. Usually a committed group that is either just been gathered around for one particular objective or goal, or there may be a group of people that are just committed to each other, that have banded together many times on many projects or for many different goals, and they're at it again now. I would say that coming as this does in the social emotional dimension, it is a sign to not neglect those connections, to not neglect the others that we have worked with. And I'm getting a strong sense this is about something to do in the workplace. And the message is to nurture the relationships. Sometimes we get so caught up in the goals and in the objectives and in kind of the immediate short-term gains that we tend to take for granted the people around us. We need to really work on connecting with those folks and not just using their talents to get what we want. But we need to work on the relationship aspect. So that's the way I would see that one this week. And I think it does probably for someone has to do with the workplace. So if that's resonating with you, or if it plays out that way this week, I'd love to hear from you on that. Up here in the mental dimension, we have the King of Coins. And this is the card of worldly wisdom. This is a cosmopolitan character that takes the long view of things, plans, watches patiently as conditions develop, and is ready to take action at precisely the right moment. So it's about preparation, discipline, and also a broad view of the world and of the way things work in the world. Coming as this does in the mental dimension of our lives, I would say that is a prompt to do some skill building and do maybe some strategic planning of some sort, whether that has to do with work or our personal lives or even our mental or spiritual development. I'll leave that up to you. But an opportunity to take some time and work on kind of obtaining new information, new skills, and something that gives us a broader perspective in the world this week. Maybe pick up a good history survey of the 20th century or something. Kind of try and figure out how we got to where we are here in the 21st. I don't know, but okay. enough said about that. In the spiritual dimension, we have the Page of Cups. And I just love this court card. This is the card of open-heartedness, of beginner's mind. It can signal a new endeavor, some sort of a passion project, or maybe even the beginnings of a new relationship or a new romance. But the hallmark of this card is a sincere heart. And so as we approach things in the spiritual dimension, the dimension of our lives that has to do with legacy, that has to do with finding meaning, as we approach that this week, let's keep our hearts open. Try, again, it reinforces kind of this notion with that Six of Wands of working on relationships with others and trying to put those relationships first. But definitely keeping an open heart. I all of a sudden got the sense that someone is approaching a situation where they will be tempted to be suspicious and to maybe kind of hold back because of that suspicion. I think this card gives us a signal to keep our hearts open, to move on forward, and to not worry too much about the immediate consequences of things. It's really our own nature that is more important in this kind of situation than just kind of getting what we want. And so even if we suspect that someone may be taking advantage of us in the short term, let's give them the benefit of the doubt this week, and we will come out better for that over the long haul if we do. So an interesting spread. I would love to hear what you think. Please leave comments here with the video or visit the weblog at atarotjourney.com and get in touch with me there. That'll do it for this week. Thank you for joining me once again. We will be back soon. And in the meantime, as always, I wish you peace. Take care.